Oh, this is a public information meeting for proposed official community plan and zoning bylaw amendments relating to RDOS file E2023.005-ZONE. So just before we get into the proposal details here, I'll just start off by explaining what a public information meeting is. So first of all, it's informal. We do not take formal minutes, but the meeting will be recorded. Any comments that you actually want to have the Regional District Board to review at first and second reading should be submitted in writing. So either by email, you can just send me an email with a letter, a feedback form, or you can drop a letter off at the office as well. I am here as well as the applicants to answer any questions that you may have about the application. We might not be able to answer all the questions tonight. As I mentioned, we do have another meeting at 7:30, but we can certainly follow up if that is required. And I just have my contact information at the end.
Okay.
In terms of WebEx, for those of us who are unfamiliar with it, we will be taking questions in turn. So how you indicate you want to speak depends on whether you join by computer or by phone. If you're on the computer, you'll need to click the participants button, which is at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. Hover your mouse over your name and just click that hand button, and it'll raise your hand and let me know that you want to talk. If you're participating by phone, you'll have to click *3 to raise your hand. And I will let you know once you've been unmuted and when it's your turn to speak. But once you're done, just make sure to click the raise hand button again or press *3 to take your hand down, just so we know that all your questions are answered. All right, so that being said, we'll go ahead and move on to the application. This application was submitted to us on April 27th, 2023. The agency referrals, so that's being to any potentially affected agencies such as the Agricultural Land Commission, the Interior Health Authority, First Nations, etc., were sent out both on May 17th and 31st, 2023. Tonight we're doing the public information meeting, and following this next week, we will have the Advisory Planning Commission reviewing this application at that meeting. And following that, the Regional District Board is set to consider this for first and second reading on July 6, 2023. This is to be confirmed as we get closer to the date. So moving on then to a little bit about the property. This property here is located at 1238 Gawne Road. The secondary address on this property is 2280 North Naramata Road, or Naramata Road, sorry. The official community plan designation for the property is agriculture. The property is currently zoned predominantly agriculture 1. There is a panhandle access which leads up to Gawne Road, and just that panhandle access is zoned small holdings 1, which is similar to the other smaller lots kind of surrounding it. The parcel is approximately 3.93 hectares in size, and it is also partially within the agricultural land reserve. And the parcel is not within an area which is a dedicated primary or rural growth area. The current configuration of the parcel is a result of previous consolidations and boundary adjustments which occurred in 2007 and 2022. So this application is being submitted as a means to facilitate the subdivision of the parcel into 2 lots of 2.11 hectares and 1.82 hectares. And you can kind of see the split there on the screen. So in terms of relevant zoning provisions, for agriculture 1 parcels, the minimum parcel size for subdivision is 4 hectares. So because the parcel already is less than 4 hectares, a rezoning is required in order to move forward with a subdivision. And as I mentioned, the parcel is partially within the agricultural land reserve. You'll note the boundary here on the screen. An Agricultural Land Commission inclusion application was submitted by the applicant in order to include an approximately 0.9 hectares of land into the Agricultural Land Reserve, so that the westernmost portion of the property, which would be the 2.11 hectare proposed Lot A, would be wholly within the ALR. So if the subdivision were to go through, you would have 1 parcel which is entirely in the Agricultural Land Reserve if the Agricultural Land Commission approves that application, and 1 parcel that is completely outside of it. Now, because the subdivision itself isn't actually cutting through the agricultural land reserve, there's no need to get additional approvals from the Agricultural Land Commission through an application. So with that being said, in order to facilitate this subdivision proposal, the applicant is proposing a number of amendments to the Okanagan Valley zoning bylaw, namely to rezone a portion of the property from Agriculture 1 to Agriculture 1 site specific, and that would be on proposed Lot A, which is the 2.11 hectare lot, and it would be rezoned from Agriculture 1 to Small Holdings 3 on the eastern proposed lot, which is proposed Lot B, and that would be the 1.82 hectare lot. Additionally, because the panhandle portion of the parcel is currently zoned Small Holdings 1, that would also need to be rezoned to Small Holdings 3. And in order to do this, they would also need to amend the official community plan designation of the 1.82 hectare portion of the property under the Electoral Area EOCP bylaw from agriculture to small holdings. And the other portion of the property to the west would retain the agriculture OCP designation. So with that being said, I'm happy to take any questions. I'll also jot my information down in the chat as well, just in case anyone doesn't catch it now. I will also, before we start questions, I'll pass it over to the property owners as well as their agent to provide any additional information. And thank you, everyone. And again, if you do want to speak, make sure you click the raise hand button or click *3.
Well, I think most people, most of the attendees know who we are. Thank you very much for putting this together for us. We are just trying to get, well, exactly what Shannon put forth there. The western portion of our property we're actually putting about almost a full hectare of land into the ALR to ensure that in perpetuity it is agricultural property. And then what we have up here on the eastern portion of our property is the 1.2 hectares, and we're attempting to designate that SH3 such that in perpetuity again, it cannot be, whether we own it or a subsequent buyer years hence, they will not be able to go ahead and further subdivide this property, because the way I understand the rules and regulations, they are minimum 1 hectare size. So we could not subdivide this, and that would never, ever be our intent. But I had one neighbor that was concerned that we would go ahead and use our right of way to further put more another construction on the what I guess would be the south side of our property there. Never would be our intent. That's always been environmentally sensitive land, and we would never do that. So I think the SH3 application just further underscores our desire to never do that. So that's the best I can explain what we're trying to get accomplished there. People that drive up and down, they notice that there's about 10% of the western section, the AC1 portion. There was an old house there, probably 75, 80 years old, that I had removed 2 summers ago, which was quite a process, following all the rules and regulations with asbestos abatement, lead paint, proper disposal of all the wood and the concrete. And so it is sitting there just as an open piece of property right now that we could put more vines on. It did have a residence on it, okay? We don't intend on putting any residence on it ourselves right now. That's it. I don't know what else to clarify there. If anybody, I would wholly recommend, if anybody's very concerned about it, to please give us a call, and I'd be more than happy to walk you through the property. It's a fairly, when you look at the property, the division, it falls right along a cap rock type area there. It just looks like a natural subdivision there, or natural division of the properties. But if anybody is concerned, I'd be more than happy to spend some time walking anybody through it and show them exactly what we're trying to get accomplished. That being said, that's it, I guess.
Great, thanks, Steve. I think with that, then we will go ahead and open it up to any questions. So feel free to raise your hand, anyone on the line, and I will go ahead and call you in order. All right, so I see first hands came from Terry and Paula. And go ahead, I've just gone ahead and unmuted you.
Hi everyone, quick hello to Steve and Tammy. We're their immediate neighbours. We're supportive of the subdivision, but we want to ask for the town planners, just in the future, you know, we understand very clearly that what Tammy and Steve's vision is to not have the any of the blocks subdivided smaller, but we'd just like to ask from a town planning perspective, if Steve and Tammy sell and move on, is it possible for somebody to come in, acquire the property as an SH3 and then convert that into SH1 and therefore subdivide it more, or is it fixed there at that SH3?
So if this proposal was to be, or the application was to be approved, and that portion of the property were to be rezoned as small holdings 3, anyone who wanted to subdivide that parcel further would have to go in for a similar application, basically asking the regional district board to rezone the property to reduce that parcel size. So it's not automatic is what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah. And could you explain as well the reasoning for changing it from agricultural into SH3 in the first place? What's the reasoning from a town planning perspective behind that?
Are you referring to so like this application itself is requesting, the property owners are requesting to rezone the property from agriculture 1 to part small holdings 3. So the rationale would be on the applicant then to explain.
Dominic, could you step in and explain that?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in there. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, Terry and Paula, we just looked to rezone and change the OCP back to small holdings. Prior to 2005, when properties were consolidated there, the original official community plan did have that parcel as part of the small holdings designation. Which really does a lot of the same things that agricultural designation does. It just for properties like Steve's, where Steve's found a great residential use, the bulk of the property is unsuitable for agricultural use. It's mainly environmentally sensitive. It just fits in well with the text of the document. And as Steve mentioned, the real focus in the rezoning of sticking with SH3 is that, it's unlikely then that anybody would ever be able to pursue any further subdivision. Would like to just highlight that we did have an environmental assessment done. The sensitive area outside of Steve's existing building footprint really isn't suitable for building, and we have quite a few rare and endangered species on that portion as well.
Thanks for the explanation, Dominic. So I do have a couple other hands up. So I will pass it over then to Barbara. And Barbara, go ahead. And Barbara, if you are speaking, you might have to unmute it on your end. Okay, so for the meantime, I will mute you again, but we will come back to you. I will go ahead and unmute Elizabeth for now. And Elizabeth, go ahead. Elizabeth, are you able to unmute yourself on your end? Okay, so I do see just in our chat here, just in case Steve, Dominic, and Tammy, if you're not able to see this, we do have a message from Barbara that says, "Hi, Tammy and Steve. I am wondering if this would set a precedence for others to subdivide their agricultural property, to add another home or driveway, etc. We have agricultural land bordering the west and north of our property and wouldn't want to see a change from agricultural land to small holdings, or to a small holdings designation." And if I see Dominic's.
Dominic, can you take a swing at that, please?
Yeah, I'm happy just to add there. I was happy to help Steve with his application because it is quite a unique property, and with historically his parcel being under that OCP small holdings designation, it just seems sensible to revert it back. But Shannon can add to that as well. But every property is assessed on its own merits, and there really is no matter of taking precedent with one subdivision in a property as far as the neighboring properties go, which many of them, just like the other the bulk of the portion, the western portion of Steve's property is ideally suited for agriculture and quite distinct from the upper portion. So the RDOS and their typical process would assess that any other upcoming applications on their merits.
And I will go ahead and add to that. I mean, when it comes to setting precedent, I mean, like I do think that, if, let's say the application were to be approved, you could see similar types of ad hoc rezonings come in. That's definitely a concern that, we've had for other kind of similar proposals as well. But as Dominic mentioned, yes, these types of applications are received and assessed and reviewed on their own merits. Let's see, aside from that, I'll go ahead and try Barbara again, just in case there was anything else that you wanted to add to that. Barbara, I've unmuted you if you do want to speak to that any further. And just for the sake of time, I will continue to move on. Again, if anyone has any questions that we don't get to address today, always happy to try to answer them outside of this public information meeting as well. So I do see another comment from Joa Taylor indicating that I don't think it is unlikely anyone wouldn't try and subdivide the small holdings land further. There will also be new homes allowed on the western parcel, right? House and a carriage home. So I can go ahead and touch on that one. So yes, an agriculture 1 zone and as well as a small holdings 3 zone that does allow for a maximum density of 1 principal dwelling unit. So your typical standard detached dwelling, as well as 1 accessory dwelling or secondary suite. So that would effectively increase the density by 2 additional dwelling units.
There was
Or at
already
least the potential.
a dwelling there too. There was a dwelling there that I had removed.
Correct. Let's see. I do see a hand from Jeff. Jeff, go ahead. I've unmuted you.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, Shannon?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got a concern that should this subdivision be approved, is it possible that a future easement over the current panhandle access to 1238 Gawne Road could be granted to the owner of the newly subdivided Lot A?
So if an easement were to be pursued, that is something, if it's like a private access easement, for example, that's something that would need to be negotiated between the 2 new property owners. But it is a potential there.
Mm-hmm.
And Jeff, it's something you and I spoke several weeks ago about this. It's something that we would not allow. Okay.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, Steve, and I appreciated back then when you mentioned that a couple of months ago, but you're planning on selling the property. There are other people in the future that may have other plans, particularly or specifically, if I were going to buy that lot down, what's it called, Lot A, on Narromata Road, 2280 Narromata Road. If I were going to buy that lot and I had the opportunity to go over the Panhandle, oh my God, wouldn't that be cool? I could build a house at the very top of that property where the views are nicer and the traffic noise is less. I could build a home right next, oh damn it, right next to my home. Well, okay, that wouldn't be very nice from my point of view, but that's just a personal side. But when I look at it, there'd be more traffic coming through. A house could be built directly at the top of it. And I think that's increasing the value of the property. And I'm a real estate, as both you, Shannon and Steve, you know, so I'm quite aware of what changes that would make to the value of a property. And it would not in any way be it would have more traffic coming up Gawne Road, which is already becoming a greater issue all the time. And yeah, I understand you're saying you wouldn't do that, Steve, but that's kind of irrelevant in real estate terms. Because once it's sold, it's done. It's what's on paper. It's not what you plan right now.
I suppose, Jeff, that should we ever decide to sell our residence here, we would make it contingent upon that not occurring.
Yeah, that doesn't work that way. Sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, I don't understand real estate quite as well as you do.
No,
Jeff.
it's a legal term. It's what's on title and what the zoning is. Shannon would be able to
Right.
talk to you, or Dominic too, I'm sure.
Okay. Well, obviously that's not our
Or
intention.
Shannon, what would you say to that?
I mean, like with respect to establishing a new easement on the property or
Yeah,
in terms of,
the intentions of Steve and Tammy right now are, I think they're admirable, and I believe you. That's not the point. The point is that it could change the second that property is sold, and it's that would be a whole new application.
To Shannon's point a while ago, then that new owner would have to go through this exact process to go ahead and allow that to happen.
Exactly.
So at that point in time, you or anybody that was concerned would stand in their way and not allow it to happen. And we would have the same discussion.
Exactly. Which is
Okay.
why I say it's kind of irrelevant what your comment about your plans right now are irrelevant to what could happen in the future.
so just keeping track of time here, we do have some additional, I have another hand up and some comments as well in the chat. So I appreciate your comments, Jeff. But if you do have any other questions after the meeting, please feel free to forward them my way.
Sure.
For now, I will have to move on to the next hand. Thank you.
Sure.
Oops. So I did see that John had his hand up. John, go ahead. I've unmuted you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I agree 100% with Jeff. I think Steve's intentions are wonderful. But when you say things like never ever, that's never ever ever going to happen, that's dangerous. People may actually believe you when you say stuff like that. And that's not the case. We plan on standing in their way, as you said, when this comes back in front of us in a few years, and it will. But
I don't
I
think
think it depends when you decide when you want to take that stand, and when enough is enough, and when you're going to draw your line in the sand. And I kind of think this is a pretty good time to draw that line in the sand, and this is a pretty good place to do it. That's just my opinion. But please, please don't say never, ever, ever, ever again. That's just not realistic.
Okay, understood.
Thanks, John. So I see a hand up from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I've gone ahead and unmuted you. So it seems like that function is not working for her, but she did ask how many buildings can be built on the 2 lots once subdivided. So I'd mentioned this previously, maybe when you were off the line. The agriculture 1 zoning and the small holdings 3 zoning, those would both allow for a maximum density of 1 principal dwelling unit, as well as 1 accessory dwelling or 1 secondary suite. So as mentioned, that would effectively allow for 2 additional dwelling units compared to what's currently allowed. And then I did see, we've just got a few more minutes here. I did see a comment from Stephanie, and she had said, subdividing agricultural land is inconsistent with the OCP. Not sure why this is necessary, and does it make it easier to sell? I suppose that would be more of a comment or a question that's geared towards the applicants to provide kind of comments on.
Well, I can just speak honestly there. Everybody understands the value of a planted acre of grapes right now. And Tammy and I have farmed that since 2007. And anybody that's involved in the business knows that that's a labor of love. We never really intended on becoming a winemaker. And so we sell our production to 2 Naramata bench wineries. It's a way of monetizing what we have right there and still being able to have our home here on the eastern side. So, you know, without dancing around, this does all boil down to the fact that we could sell it. We have interest in hand from people, and we would intend to go ahead and sell that should we get subdivided. But this is also selling to people that want the land for grape production. All right. So that's as honest as I can be about it.
Thank you, Steve. And we've just got a few more minutes here, so any quick outstanding questions, we'd be happy to answer. So I'm not seeing any hands. As I mentioned before, we do have another meeting at 7:30. For anyone who hasn't had any of their or hasn't had their questions answered, or if you come up with any other questions afterwards, or if you would like to submit any comments, I will just go ahead and drop my email address in the chat box, as well as my phone number. So please feel free to reach out. So Stephanie asked, what is the process from here? So the next step would be to bring this file to the Advisory Planning Commission meeting on June 19th. Following that time, we currently have tentatively booked this application to move forward to the Regional District Board for consideration of first and second reading on July 6th, to be confirmed as we get closer to the date. If that is approved by the board, then we would move on to scheduling a public hearing. And then further steps would be to get third reading and adoption. All right. With that being said, thank you to Dominic, Steve, and Tammy for coming. I appreciate you guys sharing your rationale on the proposal and also answering all the questions that have been posed. You guys are welcome to stay on the line as well if you'd like to listen in on the next meeting. Otherwise, you're free to go. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.